Good morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind.
Well, good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to season 4 and episode number 561, I believe it is, of the Daily Beaver Morning Show here on the Cryer Media Network. Yeah. Today, recording day, is Monday, January 20th, 2025. And it is a cold day here at the Beaver Lodge. Kids and Cubs, if you haven't heard yet, there's a whole bunch of warnings from Environment Canada for pretty much all over the country. There's some very, very cold weather expected for Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, with it feeling like, well, maybe even hitting close to actual minus 40 on the thermometer, but definitely feeling like minus 40. And I hear a couple of kits here. I see a couple of kits in the chat here talking about how cold it was where they are. And I've seen the Cassie Lake here. Good day, damn fam, from frosty Manitoba, minus 36 Celsius with a minus 47 wind chill. Yikes! So that's pretty cold here. So Environment Canada is issuing extreme cold warnings for that part of the country. It was issued around 10 p.m. on Saturday night, saying that overnight and early morning wind chill values of minus 40 to minus 45 would continue. This has been going on for the weekend and again, but things will start to warm up on Monday afternoon in that part of the nation. So it should start warming up this afternoon. And the warning included areas just south and east of Edmonton and all the way to Fort Smith in Alberta, but it was also affecting Saskatchewan and Manitoba as well. In addition, it seems that weather system is going to move east eventually. So we will get that. Will reach parts of northern Ontario and Quebec over the next couple of days. Environment and Climate Change Canada has urged people to stay inside if possible, and if not, to be aware that frostbite can develop on exposed skin in a matter of minutes. So if you are going to go out, or if you need to really, really completely and fully bundle up, because yeah, you don't want to mess with that, especially if there is wind. So please, everyone, do what you have to do to stay warm. Matters a lot. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, eh? And with me, and not as usual, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. I hope that he is doing well. I did not get word today of why it is that he's not here. So hopefully, I'm going to guess insomnia again. And he's slept through. He's been having a really tough time with that lately. So I hope that he's feeling well, and I'm sure that I will hear from him later today, and that all of you are sending him well wishes as well, and I will definitely impart that to him. big thank you goes to our podcast funding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and CanadianTarot.com. Unfortunately, Kits and Cubs, it's a short one this morning because 9 a.m. curling match, duty calls. So I have to make sure I go, and there's a whole lot of news. So what we're going to do is we're going to pack it in very quickly, mostly headlines, nothing too much in depth. Mademoiselle Fox says that he messaged me. Okay, that's quite possible. I might not have seen it because the do not disturb on my phone is on the until the alarm is set to go off, and I got up a little bit before my alarm today, so I maybe missed it. He has a throat infection. Oh God, as if he hasn't had enough. Jeez. Please send him my best. Mademoiselle Fox, I'm so sorry. To learn that man, that man has been through a lot lately. I tell you. All right, lots of warm tea with honey and all of that, and hopefully that will do. Especially if you can get some throat formula tea, that might help. All right, kits and cubs. So yeah, definitely a cold day out there. So we thanked our sponsors, I believe. I'll say it again just in case: the Pepper Master, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvin Moon Publishing, and CanadianTarot.com. Um, so aside from the weather, of course, there's other news over the course of the weekend. We had the two final big Liberal leadership campaign launches that we had expected. Now there might be more because there are three other candidates. There, Jaime Batiste, who would be the first Indigenous candidate to ever run for the leadership of a federal party, and based on the early interviews that we've seen, seems to be a person that would bring some substance to the debate and would not just be doing rhetorical flourishes. Would definitely be a welcome voice, a necessary voice, and perhaps the start of us normalizing the inclusion of this layer of our Canadian project, of our Canadian identity, weaving it intrinsically into our politics, because there's absolutely no reason why the Indigenous voice should not constantly be present in party leadership races, and we mentioned, in recognizing national history, state funerals, all that type of stuff. So hopefully, his candidacy, he will get the money, and his candidacy will go through, and yes, he will make history. And as he himself says, I might not win, but if I go, as it starts to send the message to other people that they can too. But with the various uh, cabinet ministers and big names that have decided not to run this time, and with the way that the launches went, um, and when you consider the other two candidates, Frank Bayless and Chandra Arya, who we've not heard much from since they said they were declaring, and they've got 3 more days to come up with the money to say that they're officially in the race. But they said they've declared. I just don't know if they've um, fulfilled all the paperwork and donated all the money, because that I know of, the latter three have not had an official hard launch yet. They just had a soft launch, and Jaime Batiste said that he was establishing an exploratory committee at that time. But given the fact that Leblanc and Champagne and Joly and Wilkinson have taken passes, and Aria does not seem to be a serious candidate at all, because he doesn't think that we need French and that we should abolish the monarchy, which not saying that abolishing the monarchy or not is a silly position, but in an election about tariffs and an existential threat from the U.S. and the cost of living, abolishing the monarchy uh, seems like a topic to propose that nobody's particularly open to listening to at the moment. Um, so in that sense, he's off the mark. And then Bayless said that he was going to enter, but we haven't heard a word from him since at all. So maybe they ultimately won't enter. But let's say we have 6 candidates and they do enter. Jaime Batiste, when they talk about candidates, they usually have tiers, right? The front runners, the competitors, someone who could slide up the middle if they do really good and things happen the right way, and then the also rans. Jaime Batiste is already in the contenders just by putting his name out in the way that he's presented himself and carried himself in those interviews. I mean, he's in politics. You can do a thing like John Rustad did in BC, be sensational and run after the clips, or actually present yourself as a serious candidate that's worthy of the honorable title that you are given when you become an MP. And Jaime Betis has decided to take that route. So um, if he's able to find the money to register, um, not only would his gambit this time around definitely bring a lot of media attention to him and to what it is that he's trying to do, but if he acquits himself as well throughout an entire campaign as he did on the first day when he was going to the media, he has the opportunity to really achieve his goal to make it normalized that this would be the case because the conditions are right for his bid this time around to get a pretty decent amount of media coverage, especially again if he keeps on impressing. So I really do hope he enters the race would be much better. But of the other candidates, we have Christopher Freeland, we have Mark Carney, and we have Karina Gould, who did indeed throw her hat in the ring as expected, who instantly becomes one of the top three simply because of her position or clout and her name recognition in this particular pool, which means she's going to get a lot of coverage as well that she probably normally wouldn't have gotten. Let's say all the other ministers joined in. Now she too is a member of the cabinet, and she too is going to resign her position in cabinet, but that's not really going to require much of a shuffle because she's the House leader, and the House is not sitting right now. So, but symbolically, she is going to do it. Um, so that just so there's no apparent conflicts. Not that there probably wouldn't be very many again with the house leader, because the house leader essentially hurts the cats. um, I mean, they do other stuff as well, but it, it's a lot about hurting cats, and of course, making sure that everything's on the order paper the right way and that type of stuff. And it's a very important job. It's a very important coordinating quarterback type function in the government. But she doesn't have a particular file like health or finance or something like that. So it's not um, it's one of those different types of cabinet positions, like just like the whip is as well. Um, so she's in, and it creates also an opportunity, um, the way that the candidates are and the clout, that should there be an anybody but campaign, because often in these leadership campaigns, you have some front runners and then there's a whole bunch of people, anybody but that front runner. And there could be an anybody but campaign for both Carney and Freeland at this moment. If any of those campaigns are effective and Gould impresses, she has a way to slide up the middle. And based on what I've seen so far, she had there was a little interview that she did in Halton, her region, a couple of days before. There was a campaign video that was issued that was really good, and I think we've shown her before doing the walking and talking thing when she went after Pierre a while ago. And she did the same. We were very surprised with how well and how smooth she did that. Well, she did the same thing here. Again, as smooth. I listened to it in English and in French to get a sense of her French. Um, Interesting French that she has, because she literally is, in terms of acquiring French, she's someone I identify with because she's lived in Burlington all her life and she acquired all her French in Ontario, as did I, except that she went through the immersion system and I went through full French because my mother was full Francophone and therefore we had hereditary rights to go to full French school. Um, and her French is good. It's good. When she speaks, there every now and then you hear clearly the English Southern Ontario, but there's other times like this where um, it has a little bit of a street edge on the pronunciation. Uh, very, and you can tell that she's comfortable with the language because she doesn't need any notes and she speaks well. But every now and then there are words that don't come to her. Like she said at one point, um, uh, um, stopping the increase, and she said something like, that would be um, sorry, canceling the increase. And she said canceller la hauteur, which is basically canceller is something that we do here in Ontario. The Franglish type thing when we don't really know a word. then we pronounce it à la French, and then conjugate it that way. And so you can tell, like it's not perfect French, but it is um, very much a perfect bilingual immersion in Ontario French. Like, and you can tell that she loves the culture, and that she's not only um, learned the language, but she's acculturated to the culture because by these turns of phrases and whatnot. Um, and la hauteur is the height, not the increase, right? So it would have been annuler la hausse instead, but she said canceller la hauteur, which is not proper, but you understand what she means, right? And because she kept trying to going in French in that way, you can tell that she actually does have a good understanding of the language. Again, if you're looking for perfection, not. If you're looking for someone that actually has it in their heart and the language in their heart and their soul, and that they literally are proud of it, then you got that. So the whole thing about Quebec, who's going to get to speak to Quebec because there is no Quebec entry in this race. You're looking for people that have French, that have good French and whatnot. Out of all the candidates so far, and I'm including Jagmeet Singh and Pierre Poliev as leaders here. But Freeland, Carney, she is the one that does speak French most directly from the heart. Yes. That will connect in Quebec if she gets an opportunity. And as the number 3 candidate, she is going to get some opportunities. So that's kind of interesting. So I would watch out for her because the short and the long of it, because we have a limited amount of time and not Mr. Grizzly to show you the clips anyway, is that Karina, both of them were kind of going at the same time, which was really interesting. Um, they both sort of had soft launches going at the same time, and then uh, you know none of them were completely fully announcing necessarily the date. It was like both of them on the weekend. Was one of you going to go Saturday and one of you going to go Sunday? Well, they both ended up going Sunday, and they both had videos before them. So again, I told you about Gould's. When I saw Freeland's video, it was pretty much everything that I expected her video would be. It was very slick. It was very glossy. It was extremely professional. She's done some very interesting things with her logo because her last name is Freeland. So she's divided it as free land, free on the top, land on the bottom. Uh, sort of little jab at Pierre Poliev there. With that, one and make Canada the freest nation on earth. Um, well produced. You could tell because one of the critiques of Christian Freeland that keeps coming up often. I'm not sure how fair it is because people are who they are, but that she's not particularly telegenic and not particularly an effective communicator. Um, the campaign video indicated that she had heard these things and taken some notes. For most of it, she spoke in a lower register of her voice, and her body was kept very calm. Uh, Easier to do for filming, of course, than live. But she did do it, so none of that was noise that got in the way of the message. The ad might have been a tad busy with the use of graphics, um, but that I think that's a matter of taste. They were still used pretty effectively. So both of them had effective ads. But again, in looking at the ad competition, if I was looking at them side by side, um, Gould's moved me. It spoke to me. It spoke to me like inside in my soul and my feelings and whatnot. I actually got a little misty at one point, and I'm like, "Girl, why are you talking to my heart?" Um, so Gould surprised. Well, how would I put it? She didn't surprise if you know her. Let me put it this way. Um, but if you weren't familiar with her, like, you'd be like watching that, like, "Whoa, who's this upstart? She seems to have some game." And Freeland, of course, met expectations. Planned, prepared, slick, clear message, all of that kind of stuff. Um, Miss Freeland had written an op-ed as well that appeared, so that was more of a part of the softer launch part of it, and then held an event at the Boys and Girls Club in one of the Boys and Girls Clubs, if there's more than one, but in her riding. Um, and Karina Gould held it in Burlington. Um, Looked like a very cozy sort of pub or restaurant type establishment with lots of people, uh, family, friends, and people from her community that were close to her. It wasn't a huge event, but it was in a small space, and the small space was full, which gave the impression, of course, of like lots of support and lots of noise. Um, Freelands was in a really huge hall, the Boys and Girls Club, probably in the gymnasium or something like that, and that too, there was a lot of people there, no doubt. Again, for they chose venues that were appropriate for the amount of people that were there that would create an impression of a good enthusiasm and being well surrounded. All of that is there. So they both did that well. Um, I watched Gould's thing, and of all the candidates that I've seen so far, that one key line, right? My name is Karina Gould. My name is Douglas Connors. My name is Paul Atkinson, and I'm running for Prime Minister of Canada, or I'm running to be the leader of the, right? Usually, that sentence, there's some oomph to it somehow, right? I mean, it's like, or even just like, hello, I'm so happy to be here, right? And that was one of the things I noticed in Mark Carney's, right? It's like, it's really great to be here. Okay, you said the words, but I didn't feel it. Right? Uh, I'm running, like, and the other way you could do it is very serious, like, and I'm planning to run for the leadership. Um, okay, that's fine as well. It's a way to sell yourself and position yourself. But I mean, if it's your campaign launch, right? It's excitement, why not, right? I'm doing something big. I'm putting my name in. I'm running for the leadership. She was the only one that seemed to have done that out of all of them. So she seems excited to run. She conveys that she's excited to run. She has some energy. She has some passion. She has, um, listen, she hooked me. I was predisposed to liking her, and she hooked me. And again, in her whole thing, she went through, gave substantive answers, really showed that she's a different kind of candidate, had no notes at all, at all. Uh, Took uh, a nice little jab at Mark Carney there, in there, because when we watched Mark Carney's video, I noted at the beginning how it seemed to be slow and halting. Turns out we found, and I was wondering if there was something with his teleprompter, whether or not, like tell your teleprompter people to scroll the words a little faster next time because it was just too slow and halting. But turns out there was a problem with the teleprompter the entire time. CBC Power and Politics showed some clips. One of the journalists got the picture, and it was a teleprompter where the screen's actually on the ground and then it reflects back up in something, and you could see the words were just going zoop, 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 zoop. They were just like zipping by. So there was something with that wasn't going well, and Mark Carney obviously couldn't follow that, so that's why he went to the prepared notes, and he was looking down a lot. And when you go to prepare notes and you have a fully written speech, what happens is that you ended up using it as a crutch and you end up looking down and then looking for the exact line you had because you looked up and then you don't remember where you are. And then it takes a couple of seconds, then you find it again, which completely changes your pace, changes your confidence, changes your assurance when you're delivering the speech. So that affected him. Fortunately, when he got to the Q&A, you saw a little bit more of him. And even during the speech somewhere along the way, when he kind of realized it was going okay after all, you could see him relax into it a bit. But it wasn't the most natural start, particularly since his Daily Show start was so good, that soft launch, that people were expecting that level and that standard, and they didn't get it in the politician part of it, the delivering the speech. They did get it a little bit in the Q&A, though, which was his saving grace in there. But Gould, um, was just like, I'm very rarely ever going to need any notes, and I'm just always, I'm a politician that's going to speak from the heart. And then she just delivered her whole thing and answered all the questions, and um, she was impressive. She was impressive. I understand that she's 37. A lot of people say, "Yep, nope, too young, not enough experience." Uh, you know, um, she's nice, she's good, but she's not the right person for this time, or something, or not a good choice now. Um, Personally, this is my bias. I believe that Karina Gould is a good choice anytime. Anytime. She's a good candidate in any race at any time. She has the basic qualifications and the basic mettle that is required. Any race that she's in is elevated by virtue of the fact that she's in it. That's not a debate. The debate, however, is she the right candidate for this time? And that's why we're holding a race to figure it out. But there's no doubt that she should be in this race, and she's got the stuff to be in this race. And considering that Carney's launch wasn't fantastic, it was good, it was okay, but was fantastic. And considering, unfortunately, that Miss Freeland's launch was not good at all. Not good at all. And not only for the reasons that you've heard about in the news, because she had the deck stacked against her, it seems, as well. And we'll get into that. But with Carney impressing on the Daily Show and then not meeting that high bar on his launch, and then with Freeland having super high expectations and having a very underwhelming launch, despite events that happened to try to sabotage her. Um, the game has changed a bit for Gould. Um, there could, as far as I'm concerned, if I'm looking at the soft launches specifically, right? Freeland, up until Carney did the Daily Show thing, had the best soft launch because her soft launch was that resignation letter on December 16th. So, made news, right? Went into hiding, quiet, preparing things, working the phones, and decided to take upon herself the advantage of going last. And when you take the advantage of going last, like I mentioned, right, you have to have something really good. You can't miss. And number two, the thing with having a launch on the same date as Karina Gould is that if you do it really well, you may have um, gotten a permanent advantage over a very good rival in the first few moments. And that might carry through in a short race. The other problem, though, is the immediate comparison. If the person that's having an event the same day you do actually has a better event than you do, uh, that can be a weight you carry. You may not be able to shake off. And by any objective measure, Karina Gold had a way better event than did Christopher Freeland. Now, Christopher Freeland, uh, what happened to her yesterday is unacceptable and is unfair. Um, she, the event started and she was coming into her entry music, and there was some trolling going on there too, and also some messages. Right, your entrance music sends a message. So when Karina Gould entered, she entered the place where she was going to deliver her speech to the tune of Demi Lovato's "Confident." It's a pretty good theme if you've actually read the lyrics. In the chorus, it's like, "What's wrong with being? What's wrong with being? What's wrong with being confident?" And she strutted in there. She was confident. She had an opportunity. She swung. Karina Gold is not afraid to throw a few haymakers, particularly against Palpatiev. Um, she impressed. She was confident. She came in as confident. She knows that she's an upstart. She knows that a lot of people are saying, "What are you doing here? You're too young. Go back in your hole and come back when you're ready, right? When you're more seasoned." And she says, "No, I'm doing this now." She's got confidence. She picked a good theme. Not a Canadian artist. Usually that's preferable for these types of things, but she picked the right song. It was very emblematic of what it is that she's doing. Christopher Freeland song when she came in was points for picking a Canadian artist, Nelly Furtado, but she came into Man Eater. Man Eater. Somebody was getting ready to throw some shade. Sadly, that was the best moment. She started speaking, and a group of pro-Palestinian protesters were there to disrupt. And normally, when pro-Palestinian protesters disrupt, they make a lot of noise, and we find out who they are, and they're all gathered and they're ushered out. But they protested in a very interesting way. They went all around the room, and there was at least 12 because she was interrupted no fewer than 12 times uh, before she could actually really get started. Um, and they did it one by one instead of all together. So she started speaking, then one person started yelling, then they grabbed and then they escorted that person out of the room. Then she started speaking again, and then somebody else started yelling. And this happened a few times. And Freeland didn't necessarily handle it the best ways at the beginning. I'm not saying that she handled it poorly, but you remember we've had many opportunities to see the prime minister how he handles hecklers. This and, this was not that. It was very much more like a Pierre Poilievre rally, where, people started clapping, so they were all going, free land," and started clapping to drown out the person that was protesting while they dragged them out and all that type of stuff. And, later on, as it kept happening, you could see, Miss Freeland, doing this with her hands to try to get people to raise it. And then here's the thing, right? After the first few times she didn't handle it very well, and then going like this, and then after like the third or fourth time, I was like, okay, now I'm starting to feel sorry for her because how many different variations of handling being interrupted can you do gracefully and extremely tactfully, like the prime minister has done like once or twice? But usually, there's back and forth once or twice where like, and then it stops. But this is 12 different times. How do you have the perfect reaction at least 12 different times to 12 interruptions? And she tried things like that, like she was trying to give out a shout out to the Boys and Girls Club, and they just weren't letting her. And it's like, is there anybody here who doesn't want to give a shout out to the great band? Does anybody have a problem with that? So she tried. She really tried. It was an uncomfortable situation. It was unenviable. Um, I am surprised that nobody there did anything. Like, say, you know what, we're going. Obviously, there's an issue here, or we're going to stop this for a moment. We're going to talk to people because maybe have a 15 minutes, hear them, then get them to leave and do it. There could have been something. Well, I don't. Again, I don't even know if there could have been something because how do you know who's who? I mean, it was an open crowd and they were dispersed all around the room. Um, But nobody did anything to try and change the flow. It just kept on happening and happening and happening to her. There was nobody that came out and interrupted or grabbed the mic and said, "We got something going on here. We're so sorry." Nothing. It just kept. So she was kind of left there to flounder, which I found uh, really interesting. And uh, there was part of it, and part of me that was like, there's a whole bunch of people. Aren't you any of you going to do or say something? And so she was just out there trying to fend for herself and trying to make it happen. Uh, it was it was a disgusting display. Uh, and she got to at one point where she says, this is not okay. This is not acceptable, right? I mean, this protest and it's important, all that kind of stuff. But uh, protest doesn't mean that you have the right to prevent other people from speaking, which is a good point. Also a little ironic given that the protesters were wanted to speak and they were being drowned out and carted out. So, um, it would have been a good opportunity again, maybe to stop everything for about 15 minutes and like just have a little chat with them on the side. Whatnot. It's okay. Thank you. I heard you, and then go or something. Um, again, and maybe that wouldn't have worked either, right? Who knows? Because um, when people protest by showing up everywhere somebody else is doing something and makes the moment about them and drowns out the voice and doesn't allow any other voice but their own to be heard, if that's the tactic. Um, Again, I have problems with protests that interfere with my right as a voter to cast a fully informed vote. In that event, yes, it was for Christopher Freeland in terms of launching, but that event was for us, was for Canadians. so that we could get to know who are the candidates, so that for those of us who want to vote the liberal leadership, we do. For those of us who want a good candidate for prime minister from the Liberal Party on offer when we go and vote, um, these people prevented us from hearing that person and getting that information on that day. And I always have a big problem, a huge problem with anybody trying to get in my way of casting a fully informed vote. That goes to not showing up to debates, right? Actively engaging in public misinformation when you know better or ought to know better or expected to know better. And yeah, like I said, just showing up at events that are not your own and then making them yours and stopping other people from having their events in their moment. Um, I'm not okay with that. Um, because and there's a time for that. You can do that once at one thing here and there, but as an overall strategy, just showing up at everybody's events, it doesn't matter if it's Terry Fox, doesn't matter if it's Pride, doesn't matter. Like, listen, it's like, nope, today we're talking about my thing. Um, I don't know, man. I don't know. It really gave an impression of they didn't want to be heard; they wanted to be obeyed, which doesn't go over very well here in this country. So she was facing terrible odds, and let's be honest, when you've been interrupted 12 different times and it's taken you at least half an hour to get the first thoughts of a speech out, it's kind of hard to deliver and sell that with passion and zeal afterwards, as if you were delivering it for the first time. Right? All of us have had conversations, with people where we start trying to say something like this. We get two sentences in, and then somebody comes in and like so takes it somewhere else, and then you try to bring it back, and then someone takes it somewhere. Like, and after like the fifth or sixth time, it's like, does anybody care that I'm trying to say something here? Right? It's like, if you've not noticed, I've been trying to tell you something about me 6 different times, and I could only get 2 sentences in before somebody else says, "Oh yeah, that makes me think," and then changes the subject on me. He's like, I have something to say," and you feel that thing inside you go. "Mm." Right? So that was probably happening. Was probably happening. So yeah, she didn't have a great launch, unfortunately, and you know, I think that there were people in the audience that did feel bad for her. So what happened is that they started applauding at everything that she said. Like every line was an applause line, which just make it took forever. It was not. It was not good. It was not good. It was. It was. It was just not good. Now, mind you, I didn't get a good night's sleep before, but I actually found myself dozing off during it. Um, Yeah. I don't, I don't know if she can I don't know if she can recover from this. Now, fortunately, from what I've been able to see in the news coverage of the event, if you didn't watch the whole event, um, they were kind. Let's just put it that way. And a lot of the coverage focused on the fact that there were some protests, and then they just said, like, this is what Mr. Freeland had to say, and there wasn't too much commentary on how slow and heavy and plotting and it was. There were some good lines in it, but it really I was disappointed, really, in the content and in the question and answer period because, Miss Freeland delivered her blow on the 16th and then pretty much went quiet, since then. So, more quiet than the prime minister and for longer than the prime minister, whether or not he was going to resign. Um, So there's some questions that she could have expected, and she only left time for a certain amount of questions. There maybe would have been time for more if the first half hour hadn't been taken by the protesters. So she may have left a full hour. Um, there were some decent answers to some of the questions one would expect, from this. Uh, but it led to journalists asking, uh, adding some commentary in their questions, like, I hope that you'll be more available to take some questions soon, given that we haven't heard much from you since the 16th. Um, there was a French journalist who goes, "You haven't taken any French questions in French yet. You take a question in French." And another one, you know, just um, I have a problem with that as well. I don't want journalists to be run roughshod over. Right. I truly believe that when Pierre Poilievre says, I'm only going to give you 4 questions, that they should organize themselves and like, not allow that. Um, unless someone's like really, really pressed for time. Sorry, I can only give you 4 questions. I have a tete-a-tete with, you know, the leader of Germany in 20 minutes who's here on a visit or something. Um, but otherwise, you should be able to stand for a certain amount of questions. Um, I ex I don't know, I just did, like, the "why did you do it?" I expected a little more, um, you know, uh, was the disagreement on finances, why did you not resign before? If you had problems, why did we find out about them just now? It was like, no, the problems had started before, and, there was a little bit, but there wasn't, like, a detail, there wasn't a specific example of a piece of spending that the prime minister really wanted to do, that she was opposed to, or and it was pretty much the same thing that she said in the letter. I guess we just can't. We got to keep some fiscal powder dry. Um, but why and for what reasons and develop and how can you use that fiscal powder? But none of that was in there, which surprised me because when you have a full month, right, you think that you would have like an impactful canned answer for those types of things that would meet the moment because the question is coming. So yeah, it wasn't. I have this vision of Christopher Freeland uh, as the super professional, hyper prepared, um, the person that makes the trains run on time. And I did not get that impression from this launch. And I didn't get the impression that there was much more to her launch and for why she should be leader, uh, other than I'm a strong woman that strong men fear, and I can get it done, which is a good start. But then what? What do you want to do with this position? So I got a bit of a Paul Martin feel, actually, and that was the one thing I never understood about Paul Martin is why he wanted Jean Chrétien so out when he didn't seem to know what he wanted to do with power once he got it. They ended up calling him Mr. Dithers. It's like, okay, you want power, but you should have a plan as to what you want to do with it or something you want to accomplish, a goal or something. And there didn't seem to be really. Um, and same here with Christopher Freeland. I'm the person that can handle Trump. I've done it before. Well, you were offered an opportunity to do that by being given the U.S. portfolio specifically, and you turned it down. You considered it a demotion. So it, yeah, I was a bit confused about it. And there was a little bit of a "that's it" feeling that I got. Um, but again, when you have to start over 12 times, how good can you be? Because people just won't let you talk. Uh, so, like I said, the coverage is fortunate enough that for those who didn't stay in, and the other advantage for her is that maybe after the fourth interruption and nobody knowing when it was really going to start, those who tuned in tuned out as well and didn't get to see the rest. So they might just get to the clips. She had some great moments that will make some very good viral clips, and maybe that's what people will see most about the speech. And given that the coverage has been kind. Um, Maybe it won't that won't trickle down into the consciousness of the general public, and that she's still a front runner. But for those who have been following everything, um, right now, if it was on merit alone and on performance, um, Carney would be slightly ahead of Gould, in my opinion. And the only reason Carney is slightly ahead is that he saved his launch with the Q&A. So when you add them together, but so far, every intervention I've seen from Gould this time around so far has been good and has been quality and has been consistent. And if she can maintain that level all the way throughout, I would not be surprised if she finishes at least second and not third. Would not be surprised at all. Let's just say if there's an anyone but Carney or an anyone but Christia candidacy happening, she has proven herself as a worthy place to put that anyone but vote. So keep your eyes out for Karina Gold. Do not underestimate her. Not saying she'll win. Not saying she'll win. The only way she could win is if there's an anybody but Christia and Carney type campaign, and she slides up a bit like Celine Dion, like Stefan Dion did. Oh my word, Celine Dion. That's something on my mind. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So that's where things stand for now. The other little bit of news on that one is that Melanie Jolie has come out officially and endorsed Carney. And she has a great organization. So everything in Quebec that she has is going to go behind Carney. So that's, and again, with the advantage for Carney now, too, is that given that Freeland's launch was so bad, um, if Carney can just relax into the person he was on The Daily Show and can keep on talking economics to Canadians, uh, like we're talking about it at the pub rather than at the boardroom table, which he seems to have an ability to do. Um, he might not have to um, run this race looking behind his shoulder constantly to see what Christia might have in store. I think he might get the sense that he can now just breathe, run hard, but still run comfortably. Because if people are just seeing it as Carney versus Christia, Carney's opened up a huge lead after the launches. He really has. Little bit of extra news here before we go, Kits and Cubs. Let's see, what else can I get here for you? Yes, as you know, it's Inauguration Day in the United States. These are the last, as Mark Bory said, the last few moments of calm and quiet and normalcy that we will have in a while. So please, please, please enjoy them. Enjoy the silence. Because the mouth that never shuts up, American version, is about to be given a 4-year microphone that never turns off. So if there's anything that you are doing to find your Zen happy place this morning for the last few hours of normalcy on Earth One, um, please, please luxuriate in these moments like it's a huge, huge, huge bubble bath. But yes, we are going to have that moment. I think some coverage will start around 10 a.m. on CBC. I think things will go to 11. The inauguration events have been moved indoors because apparently it's so cold. It's supposed to get down to -3 or -4 Celsius. So really not that cold out there. I think it was like 22 Fahrenheit or something. The last time there was an inauguration relatively that cold was the first inauguration of Barack Obama, where it was 28 Fahrenheit. And I think that the real reason for which the events have been moved indoors is that they didn't want another photo of the plaza with not as many people there as was there for Obama on his first inauguration, when it was pretty much just as cold. Mr. Crowd Size must be dying inside that the inauguration parade and all the ceremonies are being brought inside. That happened in 1985 as well for Ronald Reagan's second inauguration, and apparently the rotunda, they had fewer than 100 people for it, but to 220,000 tickets were handed out for what was going to go out on the mall. No, those people won't be able to see it live in crowd. Trump won't get his crowd size. Trump also had a problem with flags flying at half staff for Jimmy Carter's death. Apparently, there's a rule where flags fly at half staff for a full 30 days, but Trump didn't like that, so he's asking for flags to fly at full staff because apparently that's the priority, that the flags aren't high enough for him on that day, which will cause some very interesting discussions when his funeral comes around, whether or not we lower them. He opened the door. Um, Danielle Smith, unfortunately, appears to have done all of that schmoozing for nothing because now it's moving into the rotunda. And while she still has tickets for some of the balls and the parties, she does not have a ticket for the ceremony. She's not in the small enough circle to get invited into the rotunda. So she's literally just there to party now. Literally just there to party on your dime. So yeah, that's the jeez, I know. The prime minister will not be there personally because there's a big cabinet retreat happening. But there has been somebody that has been sent to represent Canada there. So that's not too much to worry. And while President of China Xi did not send somebody specifically, is not coming himself. He did send someone to attend, which is really interesting when we're talking about foreign leaders. Um, let's see what else do we have here. No heads of state have previously made official visit to the U.S. for the inauguration. Some of them, such as Malay and Paraguay's President Santiago Peña, were special guests Saturday night at the Hispanic inaugural ball, where several of Trump's nominees for key cabinet positions made appearances. So Malay is there and Peña is there as well. So, wow. Chinese President Xi Jinping is sending Vice President Han Zheng to come up. Argentina, obviously, Javier Milei, who was the first foreign leader to meet with Trump after the November 5th election. Um, he is going to be there. Giorgia Meloni, who Trump recently visited Mar-a-Lago. Apparently, they had dinner and watched a movie together. She says that she will attend the swearing-in ceremony. She's the head of Italy. Pro-Western former judge or President Salome Zurabishvili. She was the one in Georgia that she had the more ceremonial position, but said that she would not do anything to help the new government come in until her term was over. So she will be there as well. Emmanuel Macron won't be at Trump's inauguration, but far-right figures from the country have said they are traveling from it to be there. Yeah, and there will be other people there. And of course, the artists and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know if I'm going to watch it. I probably should watch it for the show. Don't know if I want to watch it. So we'll see. All right, kids and cubs. That's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We appreciate it when you do. Now, if you would like to support us, we would really appreciate it. Let's say if you're listening to our podcast only versions and you would like to not miss an episode, you don't have to, thanks to the Ray Girl, who has sponsored our pod page. That's podpage.com/the True North Eager Beaver, lowercase letters with a hyphen between each one of those words. And when you go to that site and you click subscribe, or if you're watching here and you click that QR code that just appeared, when we have something fresh off the bandwidth, it comes directly to you and you don't have to go looking for it. So that's a very little convenient thing. So please do that. If you would like to support us, for example, by supporting our YouTube page, then you need to make like Kit Lane and surf on down there, True North Eager Beaver Media, and click our buttons like, share, and subscribe. Makes us very happy when you do, and it helps us with the algorithm. So thank you very much with that. If you would like to support us in other ways, let's say, for example, you enjoy our product and would like to encourage us to do more, because it does cost us a little bit of money to do this. And if you would like to help us underwrite those costs, a donation to the Eager Beaver Lodge Emergency Hydration Fund via our coffee page, coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver. If you go there and just leave little coins, that's like a pat on the back and say, hey, I had a beaver. You did well today. And yeah, that helps us out a lot. So we appreciate anything that you're able to donate. Now, if you're not able to donate financially, please don't worry because the gifts of your attention and your participation are the ones that matter the most to us. And we want to hear from you. TrueNorthEagerBeaver@gmail.com is our email address. You can reach us at the Blue Sky Beaver Lodge at True Eager, also at the Bat Place at True Eager, our original home on Facebook, True North Eager Beaver. Or if you're listening on YouTube, you can leave a comment right here in the section below. We do try to read everything, even though we're not able to get back to everyone. So thank you for all that you contribute. Because democracy is something that you do. Hey, listen, there's a Quebec liberal leadership race going on. There's a federal liberal leadership race going on. Make sure that you are registered to be able to vote in those. That's very, very important. So follow, do what you need to do, and research your candidates, and find out about it. And again, I very much encourage everyone to vote at party leadership races. That's where the real action is at in Canada. So make sure that you have a good slate to choose from when the general election comes along by participating in the party leadership races and making sure that the party puts up the best possible candidate for the general. All right. Words of wisdom, kids and cubs. Don't, you know, the 4 years of Trump are going to be a bit of a mess, and it's going to be a marathon, not a sprint. So remember to pace yourself, particularly with the outrage. Okay, pace yourself. All right, kids and cubs. It's a tough world out there. So please be kind to and gentle with yourself. And I'm going to now log out. There will not be an Easter egg today because I have to run very quickly to catch my bus to be at the curling match on time. I don't know if we will have anything later today, depending on how Mr. Grizzly feels, or whether or not we'll just save stuff for tomorrow. With clips from the launches of Gould and Freeland and stuff. But if you stick around to our socials, if there's anything else, we will definitely put a programming note. But since Mr. Grizzly's under the weather, I'm going to guess that that's it for today, unless something special happens. All right, kids and cubs, love you so much. Have a most beaverific day. All right, now let's see if I can stick the dismount. Why is that not working?
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music.